NYC's latest crackdown on illegal weed shops is finally shutting them down, they say. That's right. Thousands of marijuana shops boldly opened without a license in New York City after the state legalized adult use cannabis. But after more than a year of lax enforcement, new state rules are finally allowing officials to padlock their doors. That's right. New York City's sheriff's office says it has shuttered around 700 illegal stores since new state regulations passed in April. The unsanctioned shops had become ubiquitous across the Big Apple when the city's power to step in had been limited and the legal market was mirrored in red tape. Officials had estimated that there were some 2,900 unlicensed vendors throughout New York City compared to around 60 unlicensed dispensaries currently operating. But cannabis industry licenses say the sheriff is starting to bring order. Enforcement used to be, in quotes, kind of a joke, and now it's not, said Sasha Nugent, retail director of Manhattan's Housing Works Cannabis Co., which rang up the state's first legal marijuana sale back in December of 2022. Around 100 shops have successfully defended themselves against the fines since April, and sometimes by citing faulty paperwork or the sheriff's lack of evidence, according to analysis of city administrative hearing data by the Associated Press and the City Council's investigative arm. But some of those businesses still closed anyway. When New York first legalized marijuana back in 2021, the regulations initially did not give local law enforcement agencies much power to punish unlicensed sellers. Assigning that to the nascent state office of cannabis management, officials stressed that they didn't want to recriminalize the drug as they tried to make up for decades of prosecutions. Meanwhile, strict eligibility requirements on who could receive a license to open a dispensary, bureaucratic Disneyland lawsuits slowed the launch of legal stores, and Governor Kathy Hochul, a Democrat, declared the rollout a disaster. New York still has only 150 dispensaries statewide, and by comparison, California has around 1,200. Though the state has also struggled to shut down illegal shops, New York City and state officials have promised tough enforcement in the past. Last year, lawmakers expanded the state's powers for inspections, seizures, and fines, which it then used to close some stores, while Manhattan's district attorney sent hundreds of sternly worded letters to landlords. But most of the stores persisted, ignoring the threat of eviction or financial fines, and were able to continue operating as lengthy appeals played out. While Housing Works has reported $24 million in sales in its first year, Nugent said some licensed stores have struggled because of illicit competitors. They don't pay the additional taxes that helped legalization become palatable to legislators, and often flout state restrictions on advertising and promotions. But since the new enforcement powers came in, business at licensed dispensaries, the Cannabis Place in Queens, has increased by around 35%, in quotes, because the customers in the area didn't have anywhere else to go, said manager Tamer El-Tabib. The powers passed in the state budget gave local authorities the ability to padlock stores while administrative hearings play out. But because the sheriff's office can inspect businesses without a court order, it's able to quickly raid retail stores and seize products. A lawsuit was filed in federal court arguing the practice denies stores due process, but has not won any favorable ruling that would stop it. The law firm representing some of the 24 shuttered stores in the lawsuit declined to comment, and the sheriff's office says it has also issued violations amounting to more than $57 million since April, though it's unclear how much of that sum has been collected. The sheriff's office declined to comment, referring questions to City Hall, which said 15 teams of deputies and NYPD officers are being sent out daily. And in a quote, "If you are operating an illegal cannabis business, our administration is sending a clear message. You will be shut down," the office of Democratic Mayor Eric Adams said in a statement. And City Council member Gail Brewer, a Democrat who strove for 2 years to shutter an unlicensed weed shop across the street from her office on Manhattan's Upper West Side, says the latest effort is finally helping to nip the problem in the well bud, she says. In an additional quote, she says, "There's no question about it," she said. In an additional article I found on this topic, aside from this one, the headline reads, "Governor Kathy Hochul, Mayor Adams to discuss success of recent marijuana bust." So that means they're going to have a press conference about this, guys. And in the article, it states that Governor Kathy Hochul and Mayor Adams are set to get together to discuss the successes of the crackdown. Police Commissioner Edward Caban is expected to join the pair in the Wakefield section of the Bronx, where thousands of bags filled illegal cannabis products have been seized, and at least 100 shops have successfully defended themselves against the crackdown and fines, and sometimes by citing faulty paperwork or lack of evidence from the sheriff's office, and some of those businesses eventually closed anyway. And they also say that about 60 licensed weed shops are operating throughout the city, and many of their businesses are hurt by illegal shops, you guys. Well, the city of New York is saying that they're getting rid of all of these illegal stores, and they're trying to show some proof in the pudding that they're able to shutter these places. And all I can imagine is that it is only going to evolve. If you remember back in the 80s when dudes used to wear those trench coats, Rico, and they'd have a whole bunch of like stolen watches and whatnot inside the
fake watches.
Yeah, the fake ones, and they open up their trench coat and all the jewelry is all in there. I just can imagine that's what all of these little bodegas are going to move to, is little walking people walking around with all the little vape parts in one side and Ace in the other side, and maybe pre-rolls down in the bottom and whatnot. But nonetheless,
down in the bottom of what?
Yep. This is Jason Beck for the High at 9 News Hour. What do y'all have to say about this?
I think the funniest part of his story is that city councilman, it took her 2 years to get an illegal shop shut down across from her office in the Upper West Side. And even more than that, you live in the Upper West Side. You think they ain't delivery bikers or whatever, the couriers they got all over the city? Like, wow, you shut down the one store on the street, but you know it's not just cannabis, but every other drug you could possibly think of getting delivered up and down every block of all of Manhattan.
It's too easy to open back up. This is pissing up a rope. It really is stupid, because they're going to go pat themselves on the back for closing down 700 shops. I'll bet you that many already opened up right behind them. Probably just as soon as they padlock the door, open the place back up. That's what we had here in California.
Yep.
Because shutting down a shop does not deter other people from opening shops.
Exactly.
It just doesn't.
I saw another article too, Dale, where they were talking about how they put these signs up and they've closed all these places, and they found like a consumption lounge and they closed that place and they put this big sign up on the door and they're touting that. I'm like, what about the back door?
You mean you found an empty building where people were in there smoking weed? That's crazy.
Exactly, right?
That's wild. What about the
you know
back
who's
door?
licking their chops right now is Mayor Adams and the NYPD and the Sheriff's Department there, because they're justifying their massive budget and continue pouring money into enforcement that is just whack-a-mole for no reason. You know, like let's not even talk about the full funding of the department, but they're going to be allocating a ton of money to continue shutting down shops, because as you said, there's just going to be more shops opening behind them.
Whatever happened to that the corruption investigation into Mayor Adams? Whatever. Remember that?
They investigated themselves. They found they didn't do anything wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah, investigated themselves. Okay, it's self-certified.
Self-certified. Exactly. Exactly.
This is a bunch of bullshit.
I'm telling you,
You should make it easier to open a shop legally. That'll solve their problem.
That's true.
I agree. I think they should just, anyone that wants to sell weed, they should just give them a license, let them sell weed. It's
a waste of taxpayer money.
Totally agree. Total big.
I mean, listen, if
waste.
the big shops are doing as well and they're making such a dent by closing them as they say they are, they should have plenty of money for licensing. So why don't you give them a shot and give them an opportunity? Why would you do that with our immigration policies, right? If you're here and you want to try to figure out the right way to be here, then spend the money and try to figure out the right way to be here. We'll give you an opportunity. Do the same thing with the weed shops.
If you can't find the handle to the trap door, ain't no way you're gonna put a padlock on it.
That part.
Adams. Come on, man.
I mean, at the same time, if they don't padlock the back door, I mean, that's a great, just run all the traffic through the back door, and they're going to think that you're closing the front.
This is why God invented the reach around.
Oh God, on that, yeah.
God invented that.
I was gonna say they did a really good job of getting rid of all the bars in the early 20s during Prohibition. I'm sure, right? There was never any speakeasies anywhere around Manhattan. It was impossible to get booze. So I'm sure they can continue in that same rate of success that they had then. Now 100 years later.
Fair.
They're killing.
America is a nation of scofflaws. You tell us we can't do something, the answer is yeah. Fuck you. Watch me.
Exactly, and that comes from how America was even started in the beginning. But we're not even going to go into that because Rico will just totally go down a rabbit hole.